Welcome, dear students. The current session focuses on syntax and historical development of a language. I hope by the end of this session you would be able to understand the definition of syntax and its significance in the study of a language. Of course, I would also relate it to the study of English language. Well, my dear students, at the outset of the session, you need to think about a couple of things. The first question is, what is syntax? And of course, then you need to relate it to the second question, that is, how do syntactic changes take place? Coming towards the definition of syntax, I would say it is the arrangement or placement of words and phrases to create well-formed sentences in a language. Let me clarify. You have a sentence. A sentence has different words, but there is always a particular arrangement for those words. For example, she is beautiful. This is a very brief sentence, precise sentence with 3 words only. She is beautiful. But there is an arrangement. There is a sequence of these words. If you change the sequence, something would happen to the meaning. So, for example, she is beautiful is changed in order. It would become, for example, is she beautiful? So, the meaning becomes different. Whereas in the first case, it was more like a declaration. In the second case, it becomes a question. There is a third possibility. Let us try that. Beautiful is she? All right. Now you would have noticed beautiful is she does not make any sense. So it means the order of words is important in, creating meaning, in giving it some sense. And this is what comes under the study that we do as a syntactic study or under syntax. If we trace the history of the word syntax itself, if you look at the screen, you would find a strange word written here, which again comes from, ancient Greek language context. The word means coordination. It actually consists of different parts. This part, that is taken from here, which is pronounced as syn, which means together. And the second part, this one, here you can see, that is taxis, which means ordering, giving order. So, together, giving order. Combining these 2 words comes the word syntax. In linguistics, technically speaking, syntax is the set of rules, principles, and processes that govern the structure of a sentence and thus give specific meanings to the sentence when it is put on a string of grammar. The term syntax is also used to refer to the study of such principles and processes. So, syntacticians can study, the grammatical rules that govern the creation of these sentences in different languages. They may focus on one language, they may have a comparative study, etc. If we trace the history back and see when did this kind of work start, we can see that works on grammar were written long before, this modern syntax. As far as syntax is concerned, in the field of linguistics, syntactic change is the change in the syntactic structure of natural languages. If we compare the syntactic changes with phonological changes or morphological changes or with semantic changes, we would realize that syntactic changes are very slow in the process. When we study as students of history of a language or as students of history of the English language, we can look at the change and development in the language at different levels or from different angles and perspectives. We can look at phonological development, morphological development, semantic development, etc. However, in comparison with all these, syntactic development of a language takes more time. It is a slower process, and generally syntactic changes do not happen very frequently. However, over the years, say in a few years, it is a possibility that a language may have some changes in the syntax. Even sometimes basic word order can change. So, for example, there are certain languages that have a word order of SVO, that is subject, verb, object. For example, English language or Chinese language. Look at a simple sentence. He eats an apple. He, subject. Eats, verb. Object, an apple. So this is the sequence. We do not have he an apple eats. We have he eats an apple, subject, verb, object. Same is the case with Chinese language as well. But there are other languages as well. We can look at them that have subject, object, verb, classification. For example, Urdu, is a part of that. वो सेब खाता है. We don't say वो खाता है सेब. Subject, object, verb. वो subject, सेब, object, खाता है, verb. Subject, object, verb is also followed in Japanese, Korean, and Hindi languages, by the way. There is also a possibility of verb, subject, object. Welsh and Tagalog languages are examples of that. Well, my dear students, now I'm going to give you some examples of how syntax can change over the times. If you look at the screen, actually you would find two examples. I would first focus on this example. In this example, notice the first sentence, when he visited the king. This is a very regular structure that we are familiar with, and this is how English language is structured today. What is the structure? He visited the king. Subject, verb, object. If you compare it with Old English, it is very interesting to notice that in Old English, it would be like, when he, the king, visited. So, the structure is different. He, the subject, king, the object, visited, the verb. So, subject, object, verb order is used. By the way, this is how Urdu is even spoken today. So, the point that I want to prove is that over the times, the syntax of a language undergo through certain changes, as is the case in this example. If you look at this second example, here is a sentence, Tom pushed the car. And the kind of structure you notice here, these things. And all this formation that you notice. We call it a tree diagram, and it is actually further complicated study in syntax where we see, how a particular sentence is formed, how, it can be broken into, noun phrase and the verb phrase, which further can be broken into a verb and a noun phrase, and the noun phrase again can be broken into a determiner and into a noun. So, going into all those nitty-gritties of the structure of a sentence comes under the study of syntax. I hope, my dear students, you understand that syntactic changes do take place over the times. Syntactic change affects grammar in its morphological and syntactic aspects, and it is one of the types of changes that can be observed in the process of language change.